It was Friday evening, May 12th, 2017. Funny how you remember some dates so clearly, like they've been burned into your memory. That night, that was one of those nights. See, I wasn't supposed to be there. At least that's what they told me. You're not invited. Don't even bother showing up. Their words, not mine. Now, if you've ever been shut out of something important, pushed aside, told you don't belong, you already know how much that stings. It doesn't just hurt your pride, it crawls under your skin. And for me, it wasn't just about missing an event. It was about what that event represented. Family, respect, belonging. But here's the twist. By the end of that night, the mayor himself would ask for me, personally. And the very people who said I wasn't wanted, they'd be the ones left speechless. Now before I tell you exactly what happened, and trust me, you're going to want to hear this, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Because this story, it's not just about me. It's about what happens when the tables turn. When the ones who try to bury you end up watching you rise. And let me warn you, this isn't one of those sweet bedtime tales. This is raw. It's emotional. It's full of betrayal, humiliation, and just enough irony to make you smirk. Ever been laughed at behind your back? Ever been treated like you didn't exist? Good, then you'll understand every single word of what I'm about to say. So, what exactly happened that night? Why was I told I wasn't invited? And what made the mayor himself step in? Stick with me, because the answers might surprise you. You know, the funny thing is, this wasn't the first time they tried to cut me out. It had been happening for years, little digs here and there. Snide remarks, cold shoulders, the kind of treatment that makes you wonder if you're the problem. Or if they're just experts at cruelty. Now let me back up a bit. My name doesn't matter much. What matters is the role I played in that family, in that circle. I was the quiet one, the one who didn't make a big show of things. I worked hard, kept to myself, never asked for much. And maybe that's exactly why they thought they could push me around. This event, the one they claimed I wasn't invited to, it wasn't just any gathering. No, it was the gathering. Everyone who was anyone in town was going to be there. Relatives, old friends, business associates. The kind of night where handshakes turn into deals, and small talk turns into alliances. And for me, it was personal. Because while they dressed it up as just a party, I knew it was more like a stage, and I wasn't given a ticket to step on it. I remember sitting at home earlier that week, scrolling through my phone, watching photos pop up. Everyone buzzing with excitement, planning their outfits, their speeches, their little moments of glory. And me, nothing. Not a word. Not an invitation slipped under the door. Just silence. You ever felt invisible? Like no matter what you do, people pretend you're not there? That's exactly how it felt. And I'll be honest with you. At first, I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe the invite got lost in the mail. Maybe they just forgot. But then came the message clear as day. You're not welcome. Don't show up. And it wasn't just the words. It was the smugness behind them. The kind of tone that says, we own this. We decide who belongs. And you? You don't. I sat there, phone in hand, my heart pounding. Anger, sure. Humiliation? Absolutely. But more than anything, there was this voice inside me whispering, why? What are they so afraid of? Because let's be real. When people go out of their way to exclude you, it usually means they see something in you they can't control. Still, I didn't fight back. Not yet. I told myself, fine. Let them have their little night. I won't show up uninvited, but I'll remember. Oh, I'll remember. And while they were busy laughing, clinking glasses, and pretending I didn't exist, I was sitting alone, thinking about everything that led to this. All the times they'd brushed me aside. All the times they made sure I knew my place, somewhere beneath them. Little did they know, though, the higher you try to push someone down, the stronger their rise will be when it finally happens. And my rise? Well, it came in the most unexpected way. Because when the mayor himself walked into that room, he didn't ask for them. He asked for me. But hold on. Before we get to that part, you need to understand why the mayor even knew my name. Why, out of hundreds of faces, he singled me out. And trust me, that's where the story takes a turn. So there I was, stuck in the shadows, while everyone else was out there shining in the spotlight. And trust me, that spotlight, it wasn't just about pretty dresses and fancy speeches. No, that spotlight was power. Whoever stood under it owned the night. And I wasn't even allowed through the door. The days leading up to the event felt like torture. Everywhere I turned, people whispered about it. At the grocery store, at the gas station, even at the barber shop. Everyone seemed to know what was happening. And everyone seemed to know who was going. But not me. I was the invisible name on the list. Actually, scratch that. I wasn't even on the list. You ever notice how when people try to leave you out, they get extra loud about their plans? Like they want you to know you're missing out. It was like that. Phone calls made just a little too close to where I stood. Laughter that was just a bit too loud. And I caught the glances, the smirks they thought I didn't see. Believe me, I saw every one of them. And here's where the real sting came in. Some of those faces, they were family, blood. People I grew up with. People I had helped, defended, even sacrificed for. And now, they treated me like some stranger who didn't deserve a seat at the table. I tried to shake it off. Told myself, don't give them the satisfaction of knowing they hurt you. But late at night, when it was just me and four walls, that hurt came back, heavy. Like a weight pressing down on my chest. But anger has a strange way of turning into fuel, and little by little, I started to feel that shift. That whisper inside me grew louder. Why are they so desperate to keep you away? What are they hiding? That's when I realized this wasn't just about a party. This was about control, about keeping me in my place. They didn't want me there because they were afraid of what would happen if I was. And honestly, that thought scared me and thrilled me all at once. Scared me because it meant the game was bigger than I'd imagined. Thrilled me because deep down, I knew something they didn't. The higher they build their walls, the louder the crash when those walls come down. Now picture this. The night of the event. The building was lit up like it was on fire. Golden lights spilling out onto the street, music echoing down the block. Cars lined up, one after the other, guests stepping out in tailored suits and shimmering dresses. And me, I stood across the street in the dark. Not to sneak in. Not to beg, no, I was just watching, taking it all in. The laughter, the pride, the arrogance of people who thought they were untouchable. And you know what? For a second, I almost walked away. Almost convinced myself it wasn't worth the pain. But something stopped me. A voice in my head whispered, don't move, not yet. Something's coming. And something did come. Because just as I was about to turn my back on it all, a black car pulled up. Sleek, polished, different from the rest. The door opened, and out stepped someone who carried more weight than anyone else in that room. The mayor. The crowd shifted instantly like waves parting for a storm. People rushed to greet him, hands stretched out, smiles plastered on their faces. But the mayor? He didn't stop for them. He didn't even look at them. Instead, he leaned toward one of his aides, whispered something, and that aide, this is the part that still gives me chills, walked straight across the street, straight toward me. Sir, he said, looking me dead in the eye, the mayor would like to speak with you. And in that moment, all the noise from the party, all the whispers, all the laughter, it disappeared. Just silence. The very people who told me I wasn't invited were about to watch me be called in by the one man who mattered most. But why? Why me? Out of everyone in that glittering hall, why was the mayor asking for me personally? You'll see. But let me just say this. When the truth came out, it wasn't just shocking. It was devastating. For them. The aide's words kept ringing in my ears. The mayor would like to speak with you. Now let me be honest with you. When I first heard that, I thought maybe he had the wrong person. Me, out of all these polished, picture-perfect faces? What business would the mayor have with someone who wasn't even invited? But the aide's eyes told me everything. He wasn't confused. He wasn't mistaken. He knew exactly who I was. And suddenly, so did everyone else. The whispers started before my feet even touched the ground. From across the street, I could hear them ripple through the crowd like a storm rolling in. Why him? Isn't that the one they said wasn't invited? What's he doing here? Funny thing about whispers. They're supposed to be quiet. But when you're the subject of them, they sound louder than thunder. I crossed the street slowly, not rushing, not hiding. And the whole time I could feel eyes burning into me. Eyes filled with shock, confusion, and for some, panic. The same people who told me I didn't belong were now watching me walk straight into the very place they tried to keep me out of. The hall itself was something out of a dream. Crystal chandeliers throwing golden light across the marble floor. Tables dressed in white and silver. The smell of roasted meat and fine wine drifting through the air. Music played softly in the background, violins and piano. But the real music? That was the gasps and silence as I entered. And let me tell you, there's no silence louder than the kind that falls when people don't know whether to clap or to choke. I scanned the room, and there they were, my so-called family. Their smiles froze mid-laugh. Glasses of champagne paused halfway to their lips. One of them even coughed like he'd swallowed the wrong way, and for a second I had to bite my tongue not to laugh. Isn't it strange? The same mouths that told me I wasn't wanted couldn't even form words now. Pattern interrupt for you here. Ever notice how fake smiles collapse faster than cheap furniture? That's what I saw that night. A whole hall full of masks cracking in unison. But back to the moment. The aide led me straight past the crowd, straight through the whispers, right up to the mayor. He was a tall man, sharp suit, eyes that saw more than he said. He extended his hand, firm and deliberate, and said words I'll never forget. "I was hoping you'd be here tonight. You could have heard a pin drop. Actually, you probably could have heard my relatives' hearts sink straight into their shoes." I shook his hand, nodded. But inside I was on fire. Not the kind of fire that burns wild, but the kind that glows steady, controlled, powerful, patient. Because I knew this was just the beginning. Still, I wasn't about to let them see me gloat. No, that's not how you win. The real victory comes in patience, in watching them squirm without saying a single word. So I stood there, calm, collected, as the mayor introduced me, loudly, proudly, to the others. And the irony? Some of those same people had just spent days making sure my name never crossed anyone's lips. Now, they couldn't escape it. But here's the part that really stung them. The mayor didn't just know my name, he knew my story. And when he opened his mouth to explain why he had called for me, jaws dropped, glasses shattered, and lives. Well, let's just say some lives were never quite the same again. But I won't jump ahead. For now, picture the scene. Me standing in the middle of that glittering hall, light pouring down from chandeliers, the mayor's hand on my shoulder, while every single one of my enemies tried to figure out how the uninvited guest had just become the guest of honor. They wanted me invisible, but that night, I was impossible to ignore. And the best part? The real story hadn't even started yet. The mayor didn't waste time. He wasn't one for small talk, not that night. He looked at me with those sharp eyes, the kind that make you feel like he already knows the answer to every question he's about to ask. And then he said it, plain as day, for everyone in that glittering hall to hear. "This is the man I was telling you about. The one who stood up for me when no one else would." The room went still. I mean dead still. I could feel the heat rise in my so-called family's faces. Some of them turned pale, others flushed red, and a few just stared at the floor. Because they all knew, none of them had ever done a thing for the mayor. Not one. But me? I had. Let me take you back for a second. It was months earlier. A rainy night, late, streets nearly empty. I was on my way home when I saw something that didn't sit right. A car pulled over on the side of the road, hazard lights blinking. I almost kept driving like most people do. But something, call it instinct, call it conscience, made me stop. When I walked over, I saw him. The mayor, alone, stranded, and clearly shaken. His driver had left him in the middle of nowhere after some kind of argument. No security, no backup, just him and a dead car battery. Vulnerable, exposed. Now, here's the thing. A lot of folks would have taken advantage of that. Left him there, maybe even snapped a picture, sold it to the papers, but I didn't. I offered him my umbrella, gave him a ride home, and didn't ask for a thing in return. Not a photo, not a favor. Just silence and respect, and that night, that small choice became the seed of something bigger. Because while my own people treated me like dirt, the mayor remembered me. He remembered the man who helped him when no one else was watching. So there we were, back in that hall, his hand on my shoulder, his voice steady as he told the whole room. "This man is more than a guest. He is my friend." Friend. That word cut deeper than any knife. My so-called family didn't even want me as a guest. But the mayor, the highest man in the city, called me a friend. And just like that, the room shifted. People who wouldn't give me the time of day were suddenly leaning forward, trying to catch my eye. Smiles appeared out of nowhere. Hands reached out to shake mine. The same mouths that told me, "You're not welcome," now struggled to spit out, "So glad you could make it." But I wasn't fooled. I saw the fear behind their eyes. Fear that their carefully built walls had just come crashing down. Fear that the one they'd cast aside was now standing taller than all of them. The mayor didn't stop there. He went on to tell stories I'd long forgotten. About little acts of kindness. About standing up when others stayed silent. Things I never thought twice about. But he remembered. Every detail, and as he spoke I realized something. Respect doesn't always come from the people you expect. Sometimes it comes from strangers. Sometimes it comes from the very top. And sometimes it arrives at the exact moment when others are trying hardest to bury you. That night, in that hall, the mayor didn't just call me a guest. He made me the center. The proof that no matter how hard people try to erase you, the truth has a way of carving your name back in stone. But here's the best part. That was only the beginning. Because once the mayor called me out, things started happening in that room that no one saw coming. The moment the mayor finished his words, you could almost feel the ground shift beneath their feet. My family, the very ones who told me I wasn't invited, suddenly looked like children caught with their hands in the cookie jar. One of them, my cousin Daniel, was the first to break. He stumbled forward, glass in hand, a weak smile plastered on his face. Well, look who's here. We were just wondering where you were. Really? Wondering where I was? The same man who had typed out the message telling me I wasn't welcome now acted like he had been saving me a seat. I looked him dead in the eye, didn't say a word, and just let that silence hang. Because sometimes silence says more than 1,000 insults. Another relative, Aunt Clara, nearly spilled her wine rushing over. She grabbed my arm like we were old friends and whispered through clenched teeth, "Play along, will you? Don't embarrass us." Don't embarrass them? The nerve. They'd excluded me, humiliated me, and now I was supposed to protect their reputation? That's when it hit me. The tables had turned. They weren't in control anymore. I was. And the more I stayed calm, the more they squirmed. Pattern interrupt for you. Ever notice how people beg for your forgiveness, not because they care about you, but because they're terrified of what others will think? Yeah, that was the vibe in the room. Meanwhile, the mayor kept me close. Every time someone tried to step in, he'd draw me back into the conversation. He praised my work ethic, my honesty, the kind of values that no amount of wealth or arrogance could buy. And the more he spoke, the smaller they looked. I caught sight of my brother across the hall, the same brother who told me flat out, "You're not family enough to come." His face was red, jaw tight, fists clenched. He wanted to say something, I could see it. But what could he say? The mayor's approval was louder than any insult he'd ever thrown at me. And oh, the guests. They were loving the drama. Eyes darting back and forth, whispers buzzing like bees. Some were shocked, others entertained, and a few even looked smug, as if they'd been waiting for this downfall all along. Because here's the thing. People love to watch the mighty stumble, and that night, the mighty were my relatives. Then came the ultimate humiliation. The mayor raised his glass for a toast, but instead of honoring the hosts, instead of praising the family who planned the whole event, he turned to me, to the man who reminds us all that true character isn't built in the spotlight, but in the shadows where no one's watching. Glasses clinked. Applause broke out. And my so-called family? They were forced to lift their glasses too, choking down the bitter taste of their own pride. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. That would have been too easy. Instead, I just nodded politely, letting the applause wash over me, knowing full well that every cheer was another nail in the coffin of their arrogance. Because here's the truth. Revenge doesn't always come with fire and fury. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply being seen, honored, and respected in front of those who tried their hardest to erase you. And that night, they didn't just fail to erase me, they ended up watching me shine brighter than they ever imagined. But if you think that was the end of it, oh no, the climax was still coming. And when it hit, it shook more than just that hall. It shook the very foundation of who we all thought we were. The room was still buzzing from the mayor's toast when he did something none of us expected. He put his glass down, cleared his throat, and looked straight at me. "Now," he said, his voice carrying over the chatter, "perhaps it's time everyone knows why I wanted him here tonight." The hall went dead quiet. Forks froze mid-air. My so-called family stiffened in their seats. And me? I could feel every pair of eyes digging into my skin, waiting for the blow to land. The mayor stepped closer. His hand rested firmly on my shoulder. "Months ago," he began, "this man crossed my path. Not in a boardroom, not at some fancy gala, but in the middle of a stormy night, when my car broke down outside the city." You could hear gasps ripple through the crowd. My mind flashed back instantly. Yeah, I remembered that night. Rain pouring, my jacket soaked through, and me stopping to help a stranger with a busted tire. I didn't know it was him, didn't ask, didn't care. All I knew was someone needed help, the mayor continued, his eyes never leaving mine. I was stranded, helpless. Dozens of cars passed me by, but he stopped. He didn't ask who I was, what I could offer, or if it was convenient. He just helped. Now people were leaning forward, hanging on every word. My relatives, they looked like they'd swallowed nails. And when I tried to thank him, the mayor said, his voice tightening, he refused money. He just smiled, told me to take care of myself, and drove off. He paused, letting the weight of that memory settle over the hall. Then he turned back to the guests, his voice ringing with authority. "Ladies and gentlemen, character like that is rare. It's the kind of integrity we should all admire. And when I found out he was tied to this family, I couldn't stand the thought of him being left out. So yes, I personally asked for him, because people like him don't need an invitation. They are the invitation." The applause that followed wasn't polite. It was thunderous. People stood, clapping, cheering, some even whistling. And there I was, frozen in the middle of it, heart racing, hands trembling, not from fear this time, but from something heavier. Vindication. I glanced at my family. Their faces were pale, lips pressed tight. The power they thought they had over me was gone, ripped away in front of everyone they'd hoped to impress. They looked so small, so weak, and in that moment I realized something. Revenge wasn't about shouting or rubbing their noses in it. The real revenge was this: having the truth exposed by someone with authority, in a way no one could argue against. The mayor's words echoed in my mind. They don't need an invitation. They are the invitation. For years I had been treated like an outsider. That night I became the center. But trust me, what came after the applause was the part none of them saw coming. When the applause finally died down, the hall shifted. People who had barely looked at me before now lined up to shake my hand, to smile, to whisper things like, "We never knew," or "You deserve this." Funny, isn't it? How quickly the world flips when the spotlight changes. My family, though, they couldn't meet my eyes. They sat there, stiff as stone, their carefully built masks crumbling under the weight of truth. All their whispers, their schemes, their pride, it meant nothing now. In a single night, the mayor had given me something they never could. Respect. I didn't need to gloat. I didn't need to throw their rejection back in their faces. The silence that wrapped around them was punishment enough. Because in that silence, they finally had to face the thing they'd been running from all along. The fact that I was never less than them. I was more. Driving home that night, I rolled down the window and let the cool air hit my face. For the first time in years, I didn't feel heavy. No bitterness, no anger. Just a strange kind of peace. Revenge, I realized, doesn't always come in fire and fury. Sometimes it comes in quiet vindication. Sometimes the universe itself does the talking for you. But don't mistake my calm for forgiveness. No. What they did will always sit in the back of my mind, a scar carved deep. And maybe that's a good thing, because scars don't just remind you of the pain, they remind you of what you survived. So if you've ever been left out, laughed at, or told you weren't enough, remember this. You don't need their invitation. You are the invitation. And when the right moment comes, when truth finally breaks through, it won't just silence your enemies, it will make them wish they'd never doubted you at all. And trust me, that night, they'll never forget it.